Hi, I'm Ryan Szymanski, curator for Battleship New Jersey Museum and Memorial. And today we have a video about the magazine sprinkler system slash how you flood the 5-inch magazines. I was asked a question about this and my initial gut reaction was that we don't have a 5-inch magazine sprinkler system. And I thought this because in Damage Control Central there are flood switches for the 16-inch guns, and there's flood switches for the missiles that were added later. So it seemed to me like all the flood switches were right there, and therefore there wouldn't be one in the 5-inch magazine. Also, you would think that a magazine flood, just as someone who's never seen one before, would be like a hole in the deck somewhere that's maybe grated and you open a valve and water just comes up through there from the bottom of the ship. And not only do the magazines not have that, our magazines are not in the lowest part of the ship. So it wouldn't make sense to have that sort of plumbing here. So I was getting ready to write a reply that, yeah, we don't have one, but I stopped myself and said, hey, the thing that separates me from any other scholar out there is that I actually have an Iowa-class battleship I can go and look around. So I came down here and I've looked at the overhead of this space 1,000 times and there's a bunch of pipes running through it. And I never thought anything of it because the plumbing is a chill water radiator system for refrigerating the magazine. And you can see that the piping for this is insulated like you would expect with with climate controlled water. However, we have another pipe here. So there's at least 2 different types of pipes in this space, and I'd never noticed it before. Just like in the past, I've looked up and been like, okay, there's pipes. But you've got the insulated stuff, which is water coming in, and you've got the painted, uninsulated stuff that's water draining back out. But then you've also got this unpainted pipe here that is thicker than the other ones. So that got me thinking, if there was a magazine flood switch system in here, there's obviously nothing on the floor, then it would make sense to be this kind. So what do? I put my fingers on the top of the pipe to see if I can feel any holes. No, there's no holes. This is where the pipe comes in the room. There's no holes at all. I was like, that's kind of lazy. I just checked the spot right inside the door. So I actually walked into the room and start walking around. Here we go. There are holes here when you're actually standing in the racks where the ammunition would have been. They're in the overhead. So now I know that we have a magazine sprinkler system, but we do not appear to have a magazine flood system. Does it make sense that we would just dampen the powder in the room and not flood it? So I had to go and search, and there are 2 different systems, a flood and a sprinkler system. It does not appear like New Jersey has a magazine flood system. It seems like when you turn on the sprinkler, it will continue to drain water into the space until it floods, which takes a little bit less than an hour, it seems, from the manuals. So the sprinkler system does both. And the sprinkler system is hooked up to the regular fire main. If you follow these pipes, which now that I'm looking at them, crisscross the entire room over every rack where there's supposed to be powder stored, they come over to here, and you've got a valve in the overhead. So if you're in this space, you can open that to start the magazine flood process. Again, it's going to start sprinkling, but it takes close to an hour to fill up the room, so you still have time to egress the space, assuming you're able to. And this space has 2 doors. It's not a glory hole. It has 2 ways in and out. So if there's an issue and this one's blocked, battle damage or something, in theory, I can still evacuate through the other one. Now, following this pipe out, this pipe comes through the bulkhead and it becomes this pipe, which says sprinkler system on it. Just let the ship speak to you, folks. They labeled everything. So you follow this pipe around, it goes around in a loop, and it comes over to here, And this actually ties in here if everything was put together right. This was removed as part of the dehumidification process to ventilate inside these pipes. There is another valve up here, which you can turn to open that. And comes over to here, and it's attached to the fire hose. The magazine sprinkler system is attached to the fire main like other firefighting systems. In my head, having never seen this before, I just assumed that there would be like a pipe that feeds that specifically to flood the room. No, it's fire main just like everything else. So salt water being sucked in through the various pumps in the pump rooms that suck in the water for fire and flushing. So that got me thinking, we've got local control valves. I can start flooding this locally. Are there remote valves? Like I said earlier, the 16-inch guns have remote valves in Damage Control Central. So I went to Damage Control Central again to look there and realized that that only has the remote valves for turrets 1 and 2. All of the remotes are not there. Turret 3's is on the aft end of Broadway near Marine Corps berthing. We'll talk more about the 16-inch flood system in the future, but that's what made me finally realize everything wasn't concentrated at Damage Control Central, so maybe there are remote flood controls for the 5-inch magazine. So the next thing that humbled Ryan was trying to think of, is there a magazine flood system for the shell handling rooms? The powder magazines obviously have it. Powder's highly explosive. The shells, though, are relatively inert. Maybe they don't have one. And you look in the overhead here normally, and you've got your various insulated lines for chill water and whatnot. Okay, yeah, I was right. There isn't one in here. No. Right over where the shells are stored are more unpainted pipes that have holes in the top. Why are these pipes unpainted? Because it is just a pipe with a hole in the top. If you paint it, and you know how sailors, next week you have to paint it again, the week later you paint again, the paint builds up on it and it'll seal the hole. So by leaving it unpainted, the holes stay open and so it can spray water. So there is a sprinkler system, not just for the powder magazines, but also in the shell handling rooms. So now I've got two questions. If we've got that down here on third deck, is there one up in the upper handling room? It seems weird that there would be magazine flood systems that high up. And the handling room is just supposed to have some ready service ammunition in it in wartime and nothing in peacetime. So my hypothesis there is no, we're not going to find something like this up there. My next question is there a way to remote flood this? We've got local flood controls, but is there a remote flood system like the 16-inch guns have? So I have not been able to find remote sprinkler controls like in a central damage control space, like I said earlier. But outside of the magazine, you have a valve here that is labeled as sprinkler, and it controls an entire group. So rather than just opening one of the valves in there directly from the fire main to flood the powder magazine or the projectile magazine, this will flood, it says here, the 40mm magazine, powder mag, and projectile handling. So projectile handling was in there where the shells are stored. Powder mag was the first space we were in there. The former 40mm magazine is the space on the other side of the bulkhead, basically 180 degrees from where you are, which was turned into the Willie Pete, or WP, white phosphorus powder magazine. So that's where the white phosphorus projectiles are stowed. And so this flood switch will just flood all three of these together. They all share bulkheads, so if one starts to heat up, it's then going to threaten the one next to it. So usually you would flood the entire control group. So I think that this wheel outside of the magazines is the closest thing to a remote sprinkler control that we have for these spaces. So the sprinkler control wheel here, just like everything else on the ship, has the instructions right next to it. Break the glass right here and push the hand wheel. You can see that much like the trick wheel and aft steering, this has slots that it can be pushed into that it can actually take control and then engage to spin counterclockwise to turn on the sprinkler. And you've even got a gauge here that tells you how much pressure the fire and flushing main has right now. Obviously, if you don't have any pressure, you can open that all day long and it's not going to flood the space. When you start flooding the space and it's just taking all your firefighting water for an hour, you're going to lose the pressure probably on that pump. So you've got to turn on one of your other firefighting pumps to keep the rest of the line charged. Interesting, this is also pinned in place so nobody can accidentally mess with it. I don't know if that's part of the mothballing or something that was done all the time, and then during general quarters, whoever, damage controlman I guess, that would have been here would remove this. And you might ask where the hammer is for breaking the glass. We've got another little slot right here that has a hammer that can hang. I suspect there would have been a key or something stored in here and the hammer right next to it. So you could use the same hammer to break into that and to break that glass. So now that we've answered that question, let's go see if the upper handling rooms have any sprinkler system. So now we're in the upper handling room. For those of you who don't remember from our 5-inch video, powder is stored below decks in the magazines. Those are all down on third deck. Dredger hoists bring those up to an upper handling room. And then from here, they are either stowed in ready service piles like this or transferred to the powder and shell hoist to take them up to the gun mount above us. This means that if the gun mount is hit, the explosion isn't going to travel directly down one hoist all the way to the magazine and detonate the whole space. There is a break in the hoists from the ones from the magazine to here and the ones from here up to the turret. So I would assume being up here on the main deck, being exposed, and really only carrying ready service ammunition in wartime, and not a whole heck of a lot compared to the magazines down below, that this space wouldn't have a flood system. And you come in and you look up, well, there's a big hole in the overhead where the 5-inch gun rotates. There certainly isn't a sprinkler system up there. And you look around the rest of the room, there's no sprinkler system. But you come over here, and there's a pipe that has one coat of paint on it. This pipe used to be bare until our volunteers got in here and restored the whole space. Looks really good. They did paint a pipe that isn't supposed to be painted, but because it's only got one coat, you can still feel the sprinkler holes. So this one pipe comes from the fire main, sprinkles right onto the powder cans here, and then goes over that side where the shells are stored, and then the same pipe does the sprinkling over there. So this magazine does have sprinklers. So then the next question is, this was not one of the things on the remote control wheel that we just saw down below that listed the 3 magazine spaces that were right there near it. It didn't mention any of the handling rooms. So where are the controls for this located? Unlike the other magazines, I couldn't find a control wheel in here for local control. However, I did find another pipe that says magazine sprinkler, and that leads up directly to that pipe that we were just pointing at earlier. And there's an interesting armature that is not a pipe that comes off of it, makes a right angle, and goes through the bulkhead and comes right to here. You notice if this had any labels painted on it, it's long since been painted over. However, it's the exact same kind of wheel with a glass face and the 2-part tooth meshed up system there. This is your remote flood control for this space. So the mount above you is damaged. This space starts to get hot. Everybody can evacuate this space. Last person out the door can start flooding that. And so you can even flood this magazine up here. So, unlike what I thought going into this investigation, Iowa-class battleships not only have a magazine flood system for their main battery guns, really it's a sprinkler system that can flood the space, they also have a similar sprinkler system for their 5-inch guns and even their 40mm guns back when they had them. Pretty much every magazine on this ship that can do any damage has the ability to be flooded. What's another subsystem you'd like to see us take a deep dive into and investigate in the future? Let us know in the comment section down below. Let us know if you want to see a similar video about the 16-inch magazine flood systems. Then we can get into control groups in more detail. Battleship New Jersey receives operating support from the New Jersey Department of State, also from a number of other businesses and private individuals like yourselves. We really appreciate your support. There's a link in the description below if you'd like to donate to support the museum. You can also support us by liking, sharing, and subscribing so more people find about the museum and our channel. Thanks for watching.